Alright, so I decided to do an update to the Reaver build previously posted for the PTS now that we're on live and have more fleshed out ideas. So let's start off basic character sheet, just to get that out of the way. I'm a Wood Elf. I would say the best race is probably going to be Nord, for reasons just to counter this patch, the amount of proc sets. Mainly, it's just stacking as many resists as you can. Max health, you know, that won't help, or that won't hurt you in any way, of course. Wood Elf for me is just gonna give me pen and straight resist. My main tune has just always been a Wood Elf, so I've always kept Wood Elf Stamsorc. Basic stat sheets, don't bother looking too much into these. Once I'm gonna go run out and attack mobs, and you'll see what the fighting stats go up to. We are going Steed Mundus just for the speed and health recovery, being so easy to grab this patch because of the fortitude changes, 40% health recovery. So if we do end up using the fortitude potions, we can grab that up. Let's quickly just gonna go through CP. This is gonna change a lot depending on how you play, especially the green tree. Pretty much, I mean, everyone knows this by now. You tailor it to what you do. 56 Warlord, this is going to be a staple. 1 Siphoner, of course, just to be a dick. Just for people to purge extra stuff. 2 Sprinter, those were just extra points. 56 Mooncalf. 56 Healthy, again for the health recovery. A little bit of Tenacity, just to get the Wind Running passive. And there's a good chance with this build you'll end up heavy attacking just for a little extra sustain. We are in heavy armor. I didn't put any to Arcanist, but you could decide to take away from Healthy or Tenacity and put it into Arcanist. That's up to you. 51 Tumbling. I am a Bosmer, so I'm going to be attempting to get the Bosmer passives, and we will be backbar bow this time. So can make use of the Major Expedition and pick that up. If you want to do backbar sword and board, like Master Sword and Board, we would be doing the Shadow Ward. Or you could even do the new arena backbar sword and board, which will do well with the Reaver AoE idea. You can pull in a bunch of people and then hit them with your AoE. Blue Tree, 49 Blessed, just for healing. I don't really think there's much we're gonna get from the spell crit, but it's there anyways, hey, why not? 20 Mastered Arms, this is just, I want to boost up our Whirlwind. Thaumaturge, our main source of damage is gonna be dots, AoE undodgeable dots, to go with the Reaver style. Precise Strikes, Piercing, a lot of this can be tuned if you decide to swap things around. I'll go back into this once I point things out more. And for this patch, defense-wise, 51 to Ironclad. Again, there's a lot of procs. There's bound to be plenty of direct damage going on to you. 37 Resistant. You could take out of this, actually. We're pretty high on crit resist. I think we're sitting at 3200, which is pretty good. So you can possibly take out another 200 from this and throw it elsewhere if you see the need to. 40 Thick Skinned, 43 Hardy, Alley Defender. You can bump these up, actually, if you take away from Thick Skinned. But I just kept it balanced for now. I tune it more later, or depending on how the day is going. 56 Quick Recovery. You'll see why I boosted Quick Recovery and Blessed so much. Essentially, I'm dropping Vigor, is my reasoning. But if you swap things around, I mean, you could even keep it with Vigor, but that's just what I decided to do for now. Let's go into the item sets, get that away. We can look at our consumables. We're just running the Sugar Skulls. Again, most efficient food. There's really no reason to choose anything else. If you look at our TAM, let's see, I can't pull up inventory inside on PTS. But if you look at our TAM, it does give less stats. Max health is less, the max stam is less, health recovery is less, stam recovery is technically less. So Sugar Skulls is just more efficient. The pots we're going to mostly be using, since this is going to be a dot build, I did choose to go with the Major Savagery. If you want a back or an extra pot, essentially you would make the same pot except with the health bonus instead of the immunity. I suppose you could also make one with immunity, health, stam, but you can mess around with those, choose which ones you like. I like the immunity, since it lasts that 10 seconds. You'll be able to pretty much do your full bomb or, alt dump within that, and that almost lines up perfectly with the whole combo we'll get into. My choice for sets, we're gonna go with the blood spawn. We are gonna be in 6 heavy. Just get that out of the way. We're gonna be pairing blood spawn, 4 body, crit riposte. This meets our crit resist values. And then our front bar set is going to be Azure Blight. As I talked about in the last Reaver build, Azure Blight just is going to be the most damage output. And we have, the reason I'm not going with weapon damage, again, I'm not going to be rolling Vigor, so there's no real reason to have weapon damage. Our weapon damage is still going to sit fairly decent, but again, it doesn't really accomplish anything since most of our heals are going to be based off our damage done. Building in this mindset, again, since we're not going with anything stat-based, all our heals are going to be just damage output based. It's way more efficient, just like building a proc set, any other proc set build. It's way more efficient to just go straight penetration, and we'll get into that in a sec. So we do have our 1 Azure Blight on the waist, just because it's the smallest piece. This one is Divines, I forgot to change it. That's just me being lazy. Ring of the Pale Order. So Pale Order is essentially taking place of the 5th piece of Crit Riposte. So Crit Riposte, essentially we have a very efficient 4-piece bonus, and then our 5th piece is being replaced by the Pale Order Ring, which of course, as everyone knows, restores health for damage done. And it does have a cap that got added to it, but since we're going more of the dot route, not the direct damage route, you can pretty much get as much healing pulled out of this as possible per second. So anyone fighting you is just going to constantly be healing you, and that is the Reaver concept. So tri-stats on our big pieces for enchants, and then max stam on the little pieces. That's just to maximize damage and efficiency. Because we don't really need that much max resources since we are running the Sugar Skulls. It's kind of a waste to do all tri-stats. As for traits, we're doing reinforced on pretty much everything except gloves. I put wellFitted, and the belt, you can toss it between a few things, where you could go impen for extra crit resist, but in this patch more proc, so we don't really need as much crit resist. You could do another wellFitted, or you can go Divines route on both of these. So that's really up to you what you think is going to be best. Because I am doing the Bosmer with bow setup, it will be rolling a lot, so I decided wellFitted. Why not? It helps out a little bit, and you can change your green CP around to sort of balance those out. If you did go Sword and Board, Sturdy would also be a runner-up. Jewelry, weapon damage on all of it, infused on all of it. You could do Swift if you so choose, but because I am a Bosmer running back bar bow with Stamsorc and Steed Mundus, we already have plenty of speed. Don't really see a need to pull any more. And then comes our weapons. Maces, sharpened on both. Again, we don't need Nern. There's no reason, because I don't need weapon damage. I just need straight, most efficient damage possible. And we're grabbing up all that pen. The maces, dual passive, they give the 20%. Let's look at that real quick. Down here, maces give 20%, each mace gives 10%. So if we were to assume that the average resists for most players we're going to come across is around, let's say, 24k resists, which seems pretty reasonable in this tanky proc patch. That's going to give us, I believe, 4,800 pen equivalent, and of course that number could be higher or less depending on the player's resist. So you can grab a lot of damage there. The enchants, you can play around with these. You could even run poisons if you so choose. You could run poisons like vulnerability poisons, or poisons that give you 8% more damage done. You can sort of look around, see what's out there. You can even run double dot poisons to pair with the Azure Blight. Might actually turn out better than the flame and poison damage enchant. That's up to you to play around. I just threw these on there because if my poisons did run out, this is what I'd have. Poisons, it comes down to what you find and what you can throw around. Double dots or just any sort of percent buff might work better for the AoE on multiple targets. So you can sort of build more towards single target or more towards multiple targets. It's how you feel you want to play it that day. Now our back bar weapon. This is kind of a nice setup because we can swap around to really whatever we want to use and fight. For my concept and what I'm going to be doing, I chose the Maelstrom bow, which you might think this is more of a PvE. But if you look at it, the rest of the kit, you'll start to see why. I'm going to be able to pull into an area, crowded, small area, pull inside, throw these down, and then just sit in my AoEs. At the same time, all these are going to start racking up more and more damage. Pale Order is going to be ticking. It's essentially going to have Vigor on me, just by doing my damage rotation. And of course, it's going to proc the crit surge, and you see it starts to... The heals start to add up, just constant. I don't have to worry too much about going defensive and healing. Where if you go like most two-hander normal Stamsorc builds, you'll find times where you're going full offensive, full defensive. This is just going to be full offensive all the time, and if you're not fighting someone, you're just using all your speed to escape and run away. We have a lot of breakaway potential, so I'm not too worried about not having Vigor on my particular setup. Infused weapon damage on this. Let's just grab the most amount of damage we can carry to our front bar when the time comes. Other options for this would just be the Master Bow. It's probably the best one. Throw it on there, and then it's more of a single target build. You swap on Poison Inject instead of Endless or Arrow Barrage. You could even swap away from the Caltrops. You could throw Vigor on there instead if you want to do more of the single target route. But that is fully up to you. Other gear options we have, Grothdar. If we find our resist is enough with all the reinforced, and we don't need the alt gen or the resist of the Bloodspawn, Grothdar is going to be a lot more damage. It'll proc Azure Blight way more. Snow Treaders instead of Pale Order, that's another thing to swap out. You would just swap around how your where your medium armor piece is. So Snow Treaders would be here. I'm gonna take that off. Snow Treaders would be on your boots. Azure Blight would move off of this. You'd throw Crit Riposte piece in here for your 4. And then we'd throw an Azure Blight ring on. It's a fairly simple swap. But we're gonna be running, or I'm gonna be running the Pale Order. You might really consider the Snow Treaders if the game's getting way laggier, because since these are timed long-term, this is essentially a PvE dot rotation, except in like an AoE PvP application. Because these are a lot to keep up, you're essentially just doing your own PvE rotation, not worrying about who you're hitting. You don't want to be messed up by snares, stuns, roots, and if it's starting to lag, it's going to be hard to counter those and keep up this rotation. So running Snow Treaders will aid against that. You won't have to roll dodge out of roots and try to move during snares towards people as much. And of course all your speed with the bow and the Bosmer, the Steed. You don't have to worry about losing sprinting at all. Alright, skills next. So these we'll be able to play around with. Nothing set in stone. Bound armaments for essentially the passives that it gives, because the active is mostly useless. The only thing you're going to use the active for is pairing up a crystal weapon for your burst. Since we are peeled more into the dot damage CP, the only burst we're going to output is going to be timing everything together as best we can. So you'd get your bound armaments, you'd proc all 4, hit your crystal weapon, and then into a whirling blade. And that's really the burst. You try to line these 3 up all at the same time. And of course all your dots are ticking. Crystal weapon, spammable. The reason I chose this over a dual wield spammable is because we can make use of some of these passives, like the blood magic passive, get heals. We can get our expert mage, more damage. Whereas if we just went dual wield, you know, we could do something like bloodthirst, which it's kind of a janky ability. It almost feels like it doesn't work, but this would give you a bunch of heals. Or if you want to go full dot route, you know, blood craze, rending, whatever you really want. Rending, because it applies the snare, you might be able to get people to roll dodge, and of course against all your AoEs and dots. You don't really care if people roll dodge against you. You might miss your light attacks, but all the other dot damage is going straight to them. And what is nice with all the AoE dots, even if people block, a lot of them just go straight through block, so who cares? You know, there's really, sadly, no counterplay to this sort of build. I'm sure it will piss people off. Oh, just swap bars. Let's fix that. Storm. There we go. Alright, Hurricane. You know, you're a Stamsorc. I put on this bar again for the expert mage passive to get more damage. Then a dual wield deadly cloak. Our main dual wield AoE. Major evasion, we are in heavy armor again, so major evasion and heavy armor feels really nice. Whirling blades, AoE execute, pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna spam it after you do your ult, and you have a bunch of enemies low. Dual wield ult. So now this is more for the bombing aspect of the build. You can use this overall, but there are some better choices if you want to go for the smaller, potentially 1v1 version of this build. But this dual wield ult, you see it adds 6% damage done per player you hit, up to 6, so potentially 36% damage done. So now, the way I'm playing into this, you know, the big dot isn't the big thing, the 36% damage done is the amazing part. So the big point of this build, if you see a normal Stamsorc running around and they're using PvE setup skills like caltrops, you know, you see them doing a PvE rotation, you know, you can chase this person to the end of the earth, and if you notice, most of my damage, I don't have a crazy amount of weapon damage, I don't have a crazy amount of max stam, they're all pretty basic amounts of damage, and I'm not going to be doing direct damage on any particular person, so no one's going to really see me pressuring. I might seem like a weak target. So if I do get chased down, that plays in our favor. People are going to want to chase us into buildings, chase us really anywhere. If we pull them away from the Zerg, pull them into a building, into a corner, around a corner, you know, anything of the sort, people are going to want to chase you just because you seem like an easier target. When in fact, you're just hiding the amount of damage you can do. One, your bow won't always seem to be doing damage because the Maelstrom bow takes time to build up. So your volley is going to seem really weak. People are going to think it's fine to stand near you. Until this builds up. Until you pop your dual wield ult. Until you start applying all the dots and spinning. Then the pressure comes. So we're turning on like a light switch. We're going to go from little damage that's just there to heal us with the Pale Order, to then swapping over to full AoE bomb potential. Essentially what we're going to be able to do, once we do fight a group, you get your Azure Blight going. I'm going to throw that back on there real quick. Curtain post. You get your Azure Blight going, and it might explode on a group of enemies. Then you have a mental timer in your head where you'll see you can start your build, ramp up your damage. You know, get your caltrops, get your endless hail down. And then by the time that Azure Blight's coming up to the next thing, you'd pop your dual wield ult. Azure Blight might proc, and then you go into your spins. And you see how we sort of go from 0 damage or low damage, people chase you, flicking a switch, and then pile on all this percent base damage and throw it all at them all at once. And that's the reason I chose this. Other option, you know, we just go the normal route. This is for more single target, small, you know, 1v2s, 1v3s. Dawnbreaker smiting, the stun, dot, burst damage, pairs well with the burst damage of the bound armaments, crystal, whirling, you know, into Dawnbreaker. Or you'd go bound, crystal, Dawnbreaker, whirl, 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 you know, until everything's dead. If we were gonna throw Vigor anywhere, it would be on the front bar somewhere. So for me, if I wanted to just go full dots, I'd take off bound armaments, or sorry, crystal weapon. Or you'd move Hurricane off this bar, and move Hurricane somewhere on the back bar. You'd lose caltrops, you'd lose your breach, you know, your pen. But it makes it so you don't have to worry about another ground place, and you'd be able to keep your single target. But for the most part, I'm not going to be using Vigor. That's your choice to make entirely. Most people, I assume, will choose to keep Vigor. Anyways, we'll go to the back bar, Dark Deal, you know, Stamsorc staple. Ball Lightning, you can choose to do Streak. Ball Lightning is just because of the snare removal and the orb. You can pretty much disengage anytime you want, and they can't really do much else. Unless they have a gap closer. You know, then it's easy for them to chase you. If you didn't know, Streak goes 15 meters. Most gap closers, let's see, let's go to a crit charge. It doesn't actually even say. Shield charge, where is it? Well, most of these are about 28 meters. Surprised it doesn't actually say. 22 meters. Yeah, it's about close. 22, 28 meters. Somewhere around there. So most gap closers can easily chase you if you're streaking, but you know, we do have all that movement speed. There's a good chance they're not even going to hit you, or you can roll dodge. Very, very simple getaway. The reason you'd go to Streak, if you're running in a bit larger of a group, Streak will be more beneficial. And you might think, oh, your ball could, you know, absorb projectiles for your group. That's true. But if your group members are pressured and you ball to them, it's not going to stop someone from execute spamming your teammate. But Streak, you go through, stun everything, that would. So there is a reason to go to Streak for more of the group utility. Crit Surge, you know, weapon damage, heal, kind of self-explanatory. If you ever needed to, it's very easy to swap Crit Surge on the front to get your Expert Mage passive higher, but for the current setup, I'm going to have it on the back bar. I'd rather have these short-term buffs on the front bar so they're easier to reapply if I'm in a offensive, you know, spin rotation. Caltrops, another AoE dot, pen, procs your Azure Blight, snare. Very good snare, 50%. You know, what else to say? Air Barrage, you know, plays into the Maelstrom Bow. AoE dot. Not much else to say. You know, place it. If you're out in open field, I mean, you're not exactly going to kill anyone with these. You can annoy people with your caltrops, but for the most part, if you're out in the field, you're just going to be doing bound armaments, crystal weapon, relying on your direct damage. Let's see. So if we did our master bow, we would go into the poison arrow or poison inject. Throw that on there. Venom arrow. I don't really like that morph. I don't really see any reason to ever run it or choose it over poison inject. Another execute dot won't hurt you in the slightest if you're doing more single target setup. Back bar alt. There's a lot we can play around with here. I threw this on for the regen. You know, you can throw on a version of bow alt, whichever you like. If we did a sword and board setup, you know, spell wall, easily throw that on there. Let's see. Guild, if you wanted the stun for whatever reason, you could also throw on a Dawnbreaker. Your Atronach can do that as well. Undo, easy to throw that on there. Whatever you feel you're missing and you need. For single player, even for single player, I should say, you know, 1vx, it is notable to throw on the healing negate. If you're holding down an area and you have people drawn into a building with you, they're invested, you slap down a negate, they're stuck in there with you. Granted, you could have tossed a dual wield alt, but now they absolutely, most of them won't even damage you, and you'll just be there trying to tear them up with the Maelstrom bow. Other mentions, I suppose I should go back to this ability. We would be able to throw on the sword and board, the new sword and board, and go into the pull ability. Let's actually see if I can pull that up. Ability. We'll go to Vadarashan. One hand. Let's go in here. Throw that on real quick. Alright. Okay, when you do Power Bash, when you deal damage with Power Bash, that's funny, it's not when you activate Power Bash. I suppose you have to deal damage, or you have to damage someone to use it. You pull enemies within 12 meters. 12 meters, if we look at our Hurricane, it goes up to 15, just for reference. Whirling's only 6, so you can pull people from twice your execute range back into your execute. We can slap on Power Bash. Reverb, you know, I don't know if I'd do Power Slam because we're not going to be blocking all that much. But Reverb, adding that stun in there, you could find it useful. Much like we might have the Dawnbreaker stun. You know, we come back here, someone's on you trying to attack you, you're rebuffing, you Power Bash them, and then swap back, go into your dots. Yeah, I can see how that plays well. You know, you get your burst, you get your bound armaments, burst ready, crystals swap, bash, swap back, you know, light attack, execute. That could be a decent enough burst combo. But I think that's between the bash, the masters, and Maelstrom bow. Those are probably your top choices for the setup. I mean, you could think of anything else really. You could go another dual wield, so you have 4 enchants proccing, more status effects. Output makes it harder to purge. Yeah, you could go that route. You do Black Rose dual wield with that. You put your Deadly Cloak on the Black Rose dual wield back bar, and get those enchants for the debuffs. You know, play around. There's a lot of things you can do with the back bar to tailor the build. Let's go run out there and check the stats. What did I have here before? I had the Deadly Cloak, that's what it was. Now we have the Endless Hail. So just do a buff up. This is in CP PVP, so that health is correct. It will go slightly higher. It might go up to 30k. Once we get our Bound Armaments passive. Let's see that. Yep, 30.2, so more than enough health pool for anything you're going to do. Our mag pool is still pretty high. 2, 3 streaks. If you space it out, you'll get 4. 31k, 33k max stam. It's more than enough for any normal average build would have. Weapon damage just standing, 3200 is the lowest it's going to be. Let's say we get our light attack, proc our bow enchant, 3800, still not bad for any normal build. We can see what our standing pen value is. Roll dodge with the Bosmer. Swap. Pen value, 1350, or 13,500. Not too bad. With everything procced, including the mace, amount of pen, Bosmer roll dodge, the caltrops, and everything procced, you can go up to between 23k and 26k pen. I mean, you could even go higher if someone's really a tank. But you're going to be hitting most people like they're wearing no armor, which is why our weapon damage is so low. Because again, don't need weapon damage pretty much at all. And you know, I think about it, even if I threw on Vigor, I probably wouldn't peel more towards weapon damage. Just because Vigor's only there to keep you alive when you're not being offensive. Vigor's purely a defensive ability. And the only time we're not offensive is when we're out of range of people. And if we're out of range, I mean, they're not really going to be hitting us or killing us. I don't know, maybe some random proc could kill you, and that might be a reason to go Vigor, but that's, again, up to you. If you just like having the heal you can use anytime, feel free. Let's proc our as much of everything as we can. There's the stat sheet if you want to look at it. Let's see if we can get our blood spawn going, because we should go higher. As you see, very speedy. Again, we are in 6 heavy armor, so even if the resist, I mean the resists don't seem low at all. It's 1800 resist, or sorry, recovery. So by no means is our recovery low, because we also have the constitution incoming. Trying not to kill everything, but my blood spawn is not proccing. Just wait for the blood spawn to proc so we can get that number. There's our blood spawn. And 28.5k resists. Not too bad for a heavy armor build that has major evasion. We have 1600 health recovery, which can go even higher if you run fortitude pots. I wish I made those. Actually, we can go to the crown store. Let's do that. Bag space, because I need that. And then we're gonna go try. That didn't work. Oh, I did trip. Utility, bundles. So let's just pop a tripod, see what that goes up to. 2000 health recovery. Again, not too bad. That just adds, you know, adds up to all your hots coming in. I suppose the more health recovery you had, the less you really even need Vigor, because that would be your out of combat heal. Weapon damage, I don't think it's going to be going any higher. I can't think of any other way it would. I believe it's 3700 or 3800. Again, with 25k pen, 33k max stam, that's going to be way more than enough. Not to mention, we're not even running damage sets. So Azure Blight doesn't care about weapon damage. Azure Blight's just going to do a shit ton of damage regardless, which is stupid. Disease, it does major or minor defile for you. I mean, it's absolutely silly what you can do. Maelstrom Bow, flat damage, doesn't care about weapon damage, so this just slapping on more damage straight to your build. It's kinda, honestly, it's pretty ridiculous. If you run Grothdar, another thing, doesn't really care. You know, doesn't care about your weapon damage, it's just flat. You don't need to care about even building for that stat. Crit, we are in heavy armor. It's nothing crazy. Popper potion, 30k or 30% crit. Honestly, if you could get that better, it'd be nice, but there's really no way to do that. Yeah, there's really no way I can think of doing that. You'd have to swap your mundus out for crit. And I'd rather have the health recovery movement speed, to be honest. I think that about wraps it up. Hopefully this what we got. 35 minutes, not too bad in my build time. We're getting shorter. But I think the explanations are well worth to help people make the right choices and what they want to do. Alright, well, hope this update helps. Hope it's fun. Hope Azure Blight's not too much of a pain to farm. Kurpost is crafted, it's fairly simple. Bloodspawn, everyone has it. Pale Order is not that hard to get. Maelstrom Bow, not that hard to get. Perfected, honestly, I don't think it's really going to do much for you. I suppose it helps your dark deal. So if you don't even necessarily need the perfected Maelstrom Bow. But that's pretty much it. Have fun. See ya.